recording. Okay. Welcome to...
Yes, please
I'm
both.
just trying to record. Okay. Welcome to the first episode of Boss Lax Direct. I don't know what the name of the show is. That's fucking terrible. What the hell is this
Already started
nonsense?
off great. This is perfect.
This nonsense
Great
show
for
for
that.
nonsense people. Okay. Boss Lax Direct is a radio talk show, except on video.
That's right.
And we are here with your host, Disdain, that's me, and Galahad, that's
That
that cat
that's
over
right.
there. And we are two black people that are into gaming, and we wanted to be able to share some of our opinions and ideas and just be able to talk a little bit about what kind of gaming means to us, especially in this time of COVID and the horror that is America at this juncture. Sorry, I have opinions.
Yes, we have opinions. We have concerns.
We have concerns, but that's okay. So our first episode today is called Dungeons and Dragons and Diversity. This is really a conversation about some of our favorite games. And Dungeons and Dragons has a long and storied history, as coming into the underground in the 80s, becoming very popular and terrifying moms, all the way through that decade into the 90s, and then really re-exploding onto the scene as folks kind of became adults, realized that they enjoyed their basements and talking to their friends, and picked it up. A lot
Oh,
of
you just gotta call them out like that, huh?
just sorry. Okay, so maybe we should explain a little bit about who we are, right? I
Exactly.
am Desmond is the good guy. He is definitely our paladin of the group. I am absolutely the sorceress. So if anybody's getting blasted, it's me doing the blasting, and if anybody needs saving, Desmond's gonna do it. Okay, so
I love how you call out our real names after you gave out those free names.
I mean, yeah, Disdain and Galahad. I mean, personally, I have no problem. People can find me on the internet. I'm
No,
very
no, no,
open.
it's fine. I'm just saying, you
Look,
established that track record, and you immediately broke it. Like,
well,
not even a minute.
we'll figure it out in post. Don't worry.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. But yes, we're here to talk about our wonderful selves and the random topics that we like to think about in our off time, and we wish to share with many other people, and just in general, start a discussion group and just kind of shoot the breeze between us, and hopefully, if people are interested enough, they will pop into the chat and we'll respond to some comments and questions and so on and so forth.
Yeah. So I comments and questions if they come in, they're gonna.
If giant if.
I hate answer. I mean, it's not a test. Like, if you have a problem or you want to talk to us, please like and follow and whatever else you're supposed to do with the Twitch down there. I don't know this technical stuff. No, just kidding. I'm
Well,
really
we
gonna
can't
be
have them subscribe yet, so it's just like and follow.
like and follow.
Hit the little bell.
It
Hit
is
the
it a
heart-shaped symbol up there.
they
That's somewhere on the thing.
I mean, fine.
But yes, we should probably get started because at the very least we should talk about the topic that we are here to discuss.
Oh my! I mean, we got a whole hour. What is this need to discuss? Stay on track
Oh, no,
and
that's
stuff.
fine. I'm literally just happy like shooting the breeze and just talking about like the random state of LA and how it's on fire all the goddamn time.
I mean, it's literal. I have some friends that live there. Galahad being one of them, and it's been described as living in hell, and I'm like, I would love to live in hell.
Well,
Except
are you sure? Because
that sounds
I've heard
amazing.
many people
You're
like,
not.
you don't want to visit Galahad's place because it's a freaking greenhouse. And you
I
never
mean,
go
it's
there.
hot as I hear it's hot as hell. So that you need air
Really?
conditioning. You
There is no air conditioning.
It's like a
Zero
little-
in apartments.
it's-
Zero.
Oh no!
They don't
And
believe
you
in air
live in
conditioning
LA?
here. Yes, I live in LA. No air conditioning.
How are you alive?
I used to live in New York
Oh no!
in a painted room
Oh boy!
with a AC hot glued into the window that I never used, and it would constantly
Humans.
and the heat was controlled by the complex, so the heat was on all the time. So it would be
Yes.
like 80 to like maybe 100 degrees in the summer
Look,
all year round.
I am from a Caribbean island, and that sounds literally like hell to me. Like,
Oh, and I
can't.
slept under a heavy quilt.
Nope. No. Yeah, no. No wonder you can't handle it. No,
What are you
you had
talking
to
about? I was
train.
fine.
You had to train your body. You had to train
I can't deal with
yourself.
cold. Cold's my issue.
No, I so like growing up on a Caribbean island meant that I got to sort of experience being hot and not being able to do anything about it, and that drove me
Hmm.
absolutely bananas. I can totally be cold because you can put on layers and you can have your little hat and you have your little gloves and you have your little scarf and you're like, oof, get some hot tea or coffee or whatever you drink,
Yep.
tea drinker. But the problem is when you're hot,
Uh-huh.
you're just hot and you're gonna die. It's terrible. It is awful. All right. And so like being a heavier lady myself, it's sweaty and things start to smell. It's unpleasant. So I I will take the warm weather never over cold weather. I will live in the Northeast probably for the rest of my life. I like snow. I like leaves. I like the little summertime that they have. They're all fine. No. Get
And
out of
here
here,
I
LA.
am, moved from the Northeast to the Southwest because I was like, "Oh man, job is great." And then it was like, "Wait, you mean you don't get snow over here? Oh man, this is the life." I moved in January, and I came out in January. Stupid me was like, "Oh man, I gotta go out at night because I like gotta go to the store for something."
Hmm.
I like put on my clothes. I put on my scarf. I put on my heavy jacket. I walked outside, and I'm like, "What?" And I walk back inside, and the guy's like, "Yeah, you know it's like 75 degrees right now,
They're
right?"
freezing at 75.
I go back inside, take all
Assholes.
that crap off. Like, oh my
Yes,
god!
I
Ever since
mean,
then, it's like the best thing since sliced bread.
and
It's amazing.
I'm sure it's lovely. I think we were talking about
Mm,
how go ahead notes.
I did forget something.
Oh,
Temperature differences matter because what 50 degrees in LA is not the same as 50 degrees in the Northeast. It's a thing called dry weather because we have no humidity. So like
I like humid.
50 degrees is warmer in the Northeast than 50 degrees here in the
We
Southwest
got
in LA.
all that lovely hot warmness,
You
that
keep cutting
moisture.
out.
No, I went on mute because I 'cause I had to put.
Oh no!
It happens. It's a natural process of life.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
It's a natural process of life. Leave me alone. Oh boy, oh boy. Okay, so
Oh my
now you
god.
guys know what kind of show this is gonna be.
What is this
Okay.
scarf thing you're talking? Oh, we have a talker.
No, a scarf. Like a thing you put on when you just I can tell who this person is already because it's one of those. So I'm not at the level yet where I can go outside in 40 degrees in shorts and a t-shirt and be like, do do do. I'm gonna freeze my tits. I can't deal with it, right? So, so I do find it highly entertaining that a lot of Bostonians, like that's where I'm at. A lot of New Englanders will come in and just be like, "Oh, it's like 30." I'm like, "Your blood is going to freeze. You need to put on some goddamn clothes, okay? We're not there yet. We're not there yet." Just like, come on. So I totally get where you're coming from. I'm not there yet. I need maybe I need another couple decades here, and we'll see how it goes. Um,
Yeah. Well, they're apparently from LA, so they.
I don't know how you did it. I can't. That blood conversion has not happened yet. I'll be very honest with you.
It
Um,
is fine. It is perfectly a-okay. I could come out here and I think my winter gear is still in the closet. Is
oh
legit
well,
still in the closet. To this day, I still have the two heavy winter jackets and like the giant ass trench coat
fair.
from the Northeast. And I don't think I remember any case where I put them on here that wasn't preparing to go on a plane to New
To
York or
fair.
Boston.
So totally get it. I think that
Yes.
I mean, Tali, so like to bring that back, like coming into a place like the United States and then specifically Boston from a Caribbean country really meant that I had to acclimate myself to like what was going on, and I think that that kind of ties back into sort of our diversity question is like a lot of times I think people of color and women come into gaming spaces and they sort of they feel like they should be acclimatizing to what's already there, even though what's already there is very unwelcoming. So I'll to kind of pull it back into where we are.
Nice,
I
nice segue.
I started gaming as a little like seven or eight
Hmm.
when my dad landed us in Massachusetts, and he bought us our first Nintendo. It was
Nice.
remembered very clearly. It was the Christmas of '94. I'd gotten all A's, and that's why we got the Nintendo because I did it. This
You
girl.
earned it.
I did it. So we got the Nintendo, and it was Super Mario, and it was Duck Hunt, and we were very excited about the whole thing. And I was like, all right, I learned to play it, very cool. And then Final Fantasy, I think 1 or 2 came out, and I bought it,
Hmm.
and I made my brother play it. Okay, and
You didn't
so
play it
I just
yourself.
look. I want to read the story, right? I don't want to have to fight any monsters. Come on now, that's not. I'm the boss. All right, no, let's be
You're
real.
supposed to play the game.
No. The boss sits behind and directs the situation, right? You come in,
That
you tell him, this is we're in a cave and he's fighting, and I'm like, press the X button, Tor, or like press the A or fireball. Don't I'm not firing the fireball. I don't have the reflex for that. I need to sit back and do my homework so I get A's so that we can have video games the next year. Okay? That's how it works. Division of labor.
but it's turn based, and you're literally the boss telling the little sprite characters to like to heal or to shoot a fireball or to slash the enemy.
I don't want to learn those things. I want to watch my brother play it and then get to the end and
I
dictate how it
see.
goes. Okay?
I see how the dynamic works.
Fair enough. There. So I think my brother would agree that that was the division of labor in our house, and it worked for everyone. So we're not gonna,
That's
I
right.
when I moved out, I actually missed him because I wanted him to play the video games, and I just wanted to watch them, right? But moved out, went to college, and that's really
Hmm.
when I started, really playing games with other people.
Yeah.
And I sort of felt like I missed out because I feel like Caribbean households, I can't say the same for black households.
Hmm.
I lived in a majority sort of African American neighborhood, and we didn't play games like that, right? Like we didn't, it was out of the price range of a lot of people. My dad happened to be maybe a little better off than most of our neighbors, but he certainly like we didn't have people kind of doing those things. We didn't really have a basement to go and play these games. So it wasn't ever something that we spent a ton of time doing. And, we weren't really, it wasn't really
Hmm.
sort of a thing that we did in our house. So we knew video games. We knew Final Fantasy, Mario Brothers. My mother could like sing the song to herself all of the time. It was fine, but
Yeah.
the board games or like D&D in specific wasn't a thing that was done.
Oh.
So until really, and then you would come into the space and it was certainly very male, very white. I remember going into the club once and just being like, oh, I do not like I went to
Yeah, I'm
Boston
out.
University. It was not something that was a forgiving space for a person of,
Hmm.
my skin tone and gender. It was certainly not something anybody wanted to do. I actually had to I had a friend, and we have a mutual friend that sort of introduced me to anime first and then sort of gaming in general,
Ah.
and that's how I sort of got into it because it's not like I didn't want to. I'd always sort of wanted to, but
Hmm.
it wasn't ever an inviting space, and I felt that that was too bad because I think stories are more interesting when you have interesting people telling them, right? And I think that can be a big thing. But
Now, was
that's
that your first instance in seeing any type of war games or role-playing games in your life that clubbed in your university?
So I think you probably want to. So we had a lot of board games. Like we played chess, and my dad like
Hmm.
we wanted to play checkers. We played a lot of card games and stuff. But like role playing games where you got to create a character and live that character's life and pretend to be, something else in a world that is of your imagination. That really
Hmm.
wasn't something that was done. So
Hmm.
it's kind of it's curious, right? You see a little bit of that in video games, and that was more my purview. Is like certainly from young a gamer like Ultima Online, like back in the day, back
Way back.
way back. That's where that's where I really kind of got into the whole thing. It's like creating games, muds
Mm.
and like the precursor to sort of these MMO things like Myst, these old school. That's where I was living my life. Like I enjoyed those very much. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, not really board games, just because it felt so chilly, and I was like, I'm not gonna spend my
Hmm.
time trying to penetrate a world that's definitely created for these other people.
Right, right.
Yeah. How about you? I mean, I don't know if you
So
had.
for me, I also started around the same age. I was 6 when I received my first Nintendo,
Hmm.
and I had two. I got two Nintendos.
Wow.
I
Two old
I got
ones.
one for my dad and one for my mom. Two different places. Um, so I think my mom's was the first one, I want to say. My mom got me the TV and the Nintendo at the same year for Christmas. That was also the same year that Santa was that dream was broken.
Oh, oh, they told you they were. No, so we
No, I
never.
I accidentally found out by going to the bathroom in the early hours of the morning, and where we live, like in order to get from my room to the bathroom, you have to pass the main archway that leads into the living room. And
Uh-huh.
so when I passed that to go to the bathroom, I didn't pay anything any mind. And then when I walked back, I saw my mom wrapping the TV box.
Ooh.
I was like, Mom, what's this? So,
No, I don't think I.
yeah.
I don't think I ever believed in Santa. Like I remember thinking it was silly very early. Um,
Mm.
I'll have to ask my siblings. I don't think I was definitely the Grinch of the team.
Oh man.
The
So
breaker of souls. Disdain breaker of souls.
that's right. That's right. Oh man.
I don't know.
So at 6, I got the Nintendo. It was Super Mario Brothers. I think I had Link. Um, uh, was it Jordan versus Bird 101? I had a few other games
Hmm.
that we got over the years. My dad's one eventually went to like other members of my family, so I lost that Nintendo. The one that my mom gave me, I've kept to this day. It is here with me in LA.
Tweet, tweet.
Um, and over time, I had the Super Nintendo. We skipped the N64. I got the PlayStation, the GameCube.
Yeah, on the
I got the
list.
Xbox, and kind of just went through that progression. I played on Dreamcast. Well, when I went to college, um, like just before that, I slowly started getting into anime from things that I saw on like on a Sci-Fi Channel. They would
Sure.
run some anime like over the weekend. That's how I got into like Area, and I found some little niche shows there. And then in high school, they
Area
had
style.
a sci-fi club. And the very last year I was in high school,
Mhm.
they had the sci-fi club started getting into anime. So they're like, oh, okay.
Cool.
Mostly because they also just formed that year. And they call themselves a science fiction club, but they do sci-fi and anime. So it didn't really go anywhere while I was there. And I went to college. And then again, there was a Rensselaer science fiction club,
Hmm.
but it was a science fiction and anime club. So you would meet, do anime and stuff like that. And that group of people, kind of similar to what you experienced, that's how I got into gaming. Because that group would also get together and were part of the tabletop gaming
Okay.
club
Yeah.
in RPI. So I went there. Um, I was the only black person there. I was pretty much a token. They didn't treat me like a token. Like race didn't really come up as a thing, and
Hmm.
we didn't really like make gripes or comments or whatever have you, and I wasn't exactly looking for that type of space, but I was the only black person in the group. Uh, so I ended up playing whatever board games they had. One of my future roommates for the next 3 years in college ended up being a board game designer. He would actually
Wow.
make his own board games and we would play them, which is
Cool.
interesting, especially since one of them took a week to get through one turn. Yeah, a week IRL to get through one turn of the game, and I was like, okay,
Of a game he
so
made?
yes, of a game he made. We
No,
played this
okay.
over spring break.
Ooh, no, that sounds like some nonsense bullshit. We're just not playing any. I'm just kidding. Fine. Did it come out? Did he actually release it? Should
That
I
one he
shut
did. There
up?
was another one he did.
Okay.
Another one he did later on. That one eventually came out. I haven't
Okay,
bought
cool.
it. I want to, mostly because the game. Well, I want to support my friend mostly. The other issue with the game is that it requires 4 to 9 people to play the game.
Four to
This is the
nine.
first game I ever heard of that requires a minimum of 4 people. If
Like an
the game will
RPG?
not play with 3 or less,
That's wild.
and the upper limit is 9. So I was like,
I mean, there's
okay,
a lot
now
of
I'm too
social.
intrigued.
Was it a lot of social like
Yeah, it's a
deduction?
lot of trading and a lot of
Oh,
negotiating,
okay.
and that's why the game had a very high player count.
Cool, cool.
But that group also started to do role playing. So I played my first D&D game
Okay.
in college. And then from there it branched out. We played D&D. We played some offshoots, so like Aria. I think Aria was. I want to say it was an indie RPG,
Mhm.
but my friend self-created the whole world, and then
Interesting.
my roommate. And then from there, we played a few other ones. I got into GURPS. I got into,
GURPS, oh God.
um, yeah, I
Really?
know, right?
Oof.
Yeah,
I
it was
mean,
mostly D&D and GURPS. And the funny thing is, the D&D game was actually run by one of our friends' mother,
yikes.
so she ran it.
Really? What?
Um,
Well, that's fun.
and it
I
was
mean,
good.
it's like at least
It
you
was
have
it
like
was great. It
female
was kind of great.
incorporation there, some kind of yeah. Why was it great?
It it was really fun to end up playing a character, and I think towards the end of it, my character was somehow had a trend of getting set on fire a lot. So the mother had come by and I guess given her son a cloak for me to wear because we were doing the very last session. So
Hmm.
I had to walked in to the song of what was it, Light My Fire by the Doors? Yeah,
Uh,
I the problem is I had
what?
no context for this song. I'm like, I've never heard the Doors. I'm like, what the hell is this song? But anyway, it was pretty fun. And then after that, when I came out here, I met a friend at my job who plays D&D, and I joined his group.
Cool.
And from there, branched out and started to learn like 3.5, 4th edition, 5th edition, and then all these indie RPGs, most of which are on the shelves directly behind me. So I end up learning about Shadowrun. I end up learning about Pathfinder. Um,
Shadowrun's a great game.
made like a whole bunch of stuff, and so that's how I kind of got into it. But over the years, it was very much very male, very white, um, very low on women. Like no, like I don't think I was ever in a group other than my current group right now that has had any women in it. Mostly I see them at conventions when I do like the strategic con, and we'll go there, and sometimes I end up in a player group that like there's like one woman or whatever have you. But and most of the time when you see that, they usually are coming with their significant others. They're there, they're bringing them along, or they already have expressed interest, and they're the ones bringing their significant others, which is kind of an interesting twist. I like that.
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it is a very interesting and sometimes off-putting. I had my share of bad experiences with random players that
Yeah.
joined our sessions, and we had to kick them out. Like, look, we
Wow.
ain't dealing with you. Peace out.
So what kind of
But
things would happen? Like, would it be, just playing game? There's some typical types of players that are out there. Like you have the power gamers, and you have the rules
mhm.
lawyers, and you have the people that are just there because their significant others are there. And people who want to completely derail the whole thing. Like, but what kinds of experiences did you have that made you feel sort of unwelcome as a person of color?
That's an interesting thing because I learned that later, and so it wasn't necessarily any series of instances or whatever have you. Most of my negative experiences have been with the power gamers
Mhm.
and mostly the players who crack social jokes at the table that are completely derogatory, mostly to women, and we're just like, no, get out. We ain't dealing
Yeah,
with it.
there's a lot
Um,
of that.
Nowadays,
I think people
I haven't
less.
hit
Mhm.
one. I haven't hit too many of them that were related to race, but I did have one time. I did have a couple of times where I created a character that was black. Um, and when I tried to insert the character, there was like one or two times where I ran into an issue with the DM saying like, "Oh, you know, a black character wouldn't really exist of this type and whatnot."
I always get mad
But
when people say that because I'm like, the entire game is made up. Yeah, like elves are real and dragons and like whatever the
yeah,
fuck else, you know.
I
So that
was like,
that
wait, what?
absolutely will piss me off. I'm like, you're in a mystical world where magic exists and you can't have no black people. What the hell? Stop
That's where I
it!
draw the line. No,
It is
yeah.
ridiculous.
So
Oh my
it
god.
was yeah, but those are like usually like one-offs, like convention um modules and things like that. So if I wasn't willing to put up with it, I was like, nah, I'm out. I don't need to be a part of that nonsense.
Right.
But I really very rarely have run into stuff with race. It's mostly from the outside perspective looking
Hmm.
in terms of other people experiencing it, and then taking those experiences, turning back around, and then looking at my past
And you can
experiences.
see where
It,
it was not
yeah,
that
and
great.
now looking at the broad perspective, and then noticing that
Hmm.
like the first time I actually had to pay attention to it, I walked into the room where all the D&D Adventures League players are playing,
Oh man, yeah. Oof.
and it was ridiculous. So like I never paid attention before, right? Up until like a lot of like when it started hitting my like Twitter feed, when I was hearing comments from a lot of people, reading articles, I was like, oh wow, like this sounds like a big deal. So like I walked into D&D Adventures League for one of my sessions, and then I just stopped, looked, and took stock, and it was like, where are all the
No,
black people?
nah, it's not a welcoming space. And being a little bit obnoxious and kind of a
Mm-hmm.
sorcerer and not giving a flying fuck about whether or not I'm invited into a space or not, that's just who I am. Um, what's tough about it is like there is
Mm-hmm.
so much to empower a person with this kind of gaming, like where you're able to actually express your feelings, talk about what's happening, like be someone
Mm-hmm.
different, think about a different way of being. It is absolutely something that builds up a person. And like when
Mm-hmm.
I try to introduce it to friends that who are black or who are female or who you know, of a different race, like lots of my Asian friends are like, what is, you know, what is this all about? Can I, you know, do you want to play? I like to introduce them to these things because it actually gets them, it allows you to think in a different space. And that's so
Yeah.
important, especially now with the things the way they are. That kind of freedom, that kind of thought
Mm-hmm.
is super important. So it's hard to introduce it without kind of bringing that conversation into it a little bit. You know, this is a
Mm-hmm.
the books are really like even if you're trying to buy the books, like I would go to gaming stores and they'd be like, "Are you waiting for someone?" And I'm like, "Are you going to follow me around the store? Or are you waiting for my boyfriend?" No, I'm going to buy this book because I care about it and I like this game and I'm going to read it and I know what they're talking about. I know I have 20-sided dice. I know what this fucking does. I can do the it
Yeah.
aggravates
Mm.
me. And so
Already. All right.
I will get mad. I will I will pop off in
Flare
a
up.
minute about this stuff. Do not
Oh
cross
yeah.
me. And it's funny, like the gaming stores that I go to now, they know me. They know very well like who I am and the fact that I drop,
Mm.
you know, I can drop $500 in a pop at the store and they're like, "Oh, you know, she actually knows what she's doing." But I had to fight for that respect. And
Yeah.
I think it really sucks that you know, folks, someone coming into this hobby gets there's just so much shit. There's this like a very high bar of entry. You already have to read a lot. You have to be willing to spend a lot of time like understanding the rules of the game, and
Precisely.
it's already tough to play this game, and we want more people to come in, right? So maybe does Galahad and I will I'll spend a little time telling you maybe about who I am and why I feel like I can invite people into the space. But see, there again, I feel like I have to justify why I want to talk about it, right? So
We don't have to, we made this whole thing so that we don't have to justify what we're
I
talking about.
know
We literally are talking about it.
it sucks, but still, we've been going to Gen Con for what, 10 years now? Over 10 years?
About, yeah.
15?
You've
I think
probably been
we're
there a little longer than I've had off and on years.
I think we're
I
cre-
started before you,
yeah.
but you're more consistent than I was.
Probably, yeah. I think we're creeping up on a decade and a half in one of
Hmm.
the biggest gaming conventions in the world, which is the Coast. We know names.
Yes.
We have friends that play very frequently. I'm at Max from Cards Against Humanity. I probably shouldn't drop his name. Just we are. I would consider myself someone who knows a lot about the industry and a lot about who, what is good work in the industry, right? Like we went to the
Hmm.
Ennies. I was very pleased to see that Morkborg won, even though if I ever show my mother that book, she will burn it and then burn me straight up. Okay,
That's
she
right.
would burn me as a witch because that is some devilting as they say. Okay, but it's the case, right? Like I want to be able to introduce friends to this space, and I want the
Hmm.
space to be welcoming to them, right? And it's hard to see um, articles like what that the whole orc um, conversation about having these what are called quote unquote evil races, having them really be in confluence with black people in a real way. And so they talk about goblins, they talk about orcs and evil races, and they're definitely links to other kinds of people, and it really shouldn't be that way, right? And so I think that because it's already there, it's pretty much
Right.
impossible um, for wizards to retcon it, for the TSR wizards to retcon that kind of stuff. It's there. So now you're in a place where you have to you have to legitimize it, right? Like, so
Hmm.
I've been listening to prepare for the show. I've been listening to the Tales of Dwarden,
Oh, okay.
and so it's a wonderful audio. I've been
Hmm.
listening to it audiobook, and Ice-T is one of the audio
What?
reader. Yeah, Ice-T, and I was like,
What the? I
yeah,
have to listen to this now.
it
What the
was
fudge?
good. So it was. I was pleased. He says swords in an interesting way. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I love Ice-T. He's so funny. But he did a great job. He was good. There was a lot of hard names like Menzo Baranzan. I did it.
Ooh,
And
that's right.
I mean, if you know D&D and D and if you know Forgotten Realms, Dritz isn't easy, and it is not an easy set of wars, and it's not an easy cast. And he did a great job. And I was like, wow, Ice-T, you can play D&D with me anytime. Uh,
That's
open
right.
open invite. But yeah, just so listening to it,
Hmm.
the stories really focus in on the war that the orcs, Obold, who is the captain, the king of the orcs, and really hearing how he was trying to create a kingdom out of the orcs,
Okay.
which were really considered a very low-level evil race, right, at the beginning of the whole conversation. And then to have the stories move through this idea that, orcs aren't necessarily completely uncivilized and bad. I was like, you are talking about black people, and there's the way that the conversation is being done, is being like worked through, is very much an appeasement to the complaints that were raised against the way that orcs are always treated in many different aspects and many different cultural like milieus. So,
Especially when you consider the fact that the system only considers orcs to be a playable race when you play as a half-orc,
Right.
meaning that
You need to
the
have
evilness within the race is it's part of their biological makeup,
yeah,
not part of the cultural and environmental things that are in the background. So they're saying, you're born an orc, you are immediately evil.
yeah.
And so, like, if you're half, that cuts it out, and that's why you're able to be a player race, quote unquote, which is highly offensive in so many different ways.
I mean, it's it's tough, right? So you're faced with thinly veiled sort of racial assumptions, and so you're coming
Mm-hmm.
into the space where you're trying to you either ignore it or you try to address it or you embrace it. And it's kind of hard to pick one of the, I mean, I think that that's where this sort of diversity question comes in, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
do you retcon the whole thing and completely ignore the history? So this what is it now is it's 2020, so we're looking at the early 80s, late 70s, so that's a 40-year history of storytelling around a very particular set of circumstances. Do you completely ignore it? Do you try to work against it in an interesting way? Do you incorporate it and embrace it? Like, what is the right answer? And I
Well,
think that, go ahead.
oh, sorry. One of the ways I would say to go about it, which would be cool, if you wanted to keep it, like, we should not forget that history. Just because it's bad doesn't mean it should be erased. Um, you kind of have to own it in a certain aspect. Like, look, we did this. This is a thing that happened in the past. We acknowledge it, but we're going to move on from it. And if they had made like a new setting that was kind of like a new orc civilization or whatever have you, that show it was kind of like, the showing of Wakanda or whatever have you. If you have a
Mhm.
Wakanda for orcs, um, and that I feel like that still sounds weird and wrong in a way, but essentially you show their things advanced and taking into that 40-year time span of like that entire history of orcs and have it naturally progress to a point where like here is their actual culture, here is what they do, here is you know their aspects of society, and actually expand it and broaden it and like show how they can show kind of show like how their society actually is,
Mhm.
um and let in some nuance, let in some more storytelling, let in some more like flavor to build upon that. Then you can honor, well, I want to say honor, you can show
Yeah,
that
it shows
you
respect.
acknowledge the history that came before while expanding on it for to allow like further growth for the future.
So,
um
do you think that that's what's been done, or like the approach that's currently in place? What do you
Currently
think
right
about it?
now it's not. So I believe the recent book that's coming out, which is Tasha's Culture and Everything, is going to allow for players to make changes to their character during character creation that allows them to say you have two parts of your character. There's one part that's always going to be the quote unquote racial bit. This is what I am because I'm born this way,
Okay.
and some of those would be related to stats. Some of those are related to like your little racial special features, like being able to innately cast fairy fire or whatever have you. And then there's the other half is going to be I am this because I was brought up in this environment, or this was my family, or this is my culture. So you be able to mesh the two so that you can actually like say, oh, I'm a half elf, but my other half is like dwarves. Because in a normal game, you could not do that. It's implied that if you're a half elf, a half orc, the
Okay.
half is human, and that's what that cut is. Why couldn't you have a half elf, half dwarf?
Right.
That makes perfect sense. This
Mhm.
will
Mhm.
allow players to do that. So you would be able to cut the half orc into those two parts, and then now start piecing together and do that explanation. It's kind of a give me as the explanation as to how you can have half orcs the way they are given the history of that.
Okay.
and let alone Drow, because that was the other race that came into that. It was Drow, so effectively just black elves.
I mean, they're my favorite. Like, I'll be very honest. Like, I love Drist, and he's just the best. Except, I
Oh
think
no,
he's. I hit. Go ahead.
no,
Never
he's
mind.
good.
We'll,
No, I'm not
we'll,
dissing Dritz.
we'll,
Dritz
we'll,
is the bomb.
Actually, the person I like is their goddamn like their scary spider queen, god. She's amazing.
Oh,
I love her. I'm ready. I mean, like, I would be a spider queen any day. In fact,
that's
I might
right.
be right now. The back half might be spider.
You'll never know.
You'll never
This chair
know.
blocks it.
That's right. Might be. Never mind. Okay, let's continue.
But yeah, so you can you would be able to mix and match different things from character creation to make the character that you want. But some people are saying that they don't like that because the way that your stuff is built, how they did it before, where everything tied to your race was like one whole package. But it assumed that like, oh, all elves are like high elves. You can have the different flavors as high elf, wood elf,
Yeah, moon
whatever
elf.
have you. And if you took those packages, if you took that sub race, it included both the racial and effectively environmental, cultural factors.
Right.
But it did not allow for a player to say, I am a high elf that went out and it essentially was raised like a wood elf, or lived the life of a wood elf, or a dwarf that went out and actually like
Captured by the
lived the
drow.
life of a gnome. And so
Captured
yeah,
and eaten by the
it's
drow.
assumed that like your innate thing
Fair.
was with your family up until you decided I'm going to adventure, and then you get from there. And so
I mean,
this
it's an
kind of
easy.
diversity allows for that.
So I think it's in an easy. There's two pieces to this. It's kind of an easy way to jump the person into the character, and then I think
Hmm.
the expectation is you're raised by your family until whatever year, and then you go out adventuring, and it kind of makes sense because of the murder hobo nature of a lot of parties. They have no sense. They're obviously all 18-year-old children sent out into the world to kill and maim and bring back loot to their homes. Fine.
Yes, yes.
But if you are an actual adult, and I think that's what is happening. Like, as the players of D&D have grown up and they've realized that the world isn't black and white. It's not evil races, it's not good races, it's not chaotic and lawful. There are many, 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 many reasons for things to happen the way they are, and there are many people who will say that what you think is the right thing is absolutely not the right thing. So I think that
Right.
that really reflects this sort of this maturity in the player base that's happening now. So I mean, you have interesting things like I think Penny Arcade put out a book where you are in an office space. You're like in an adventuring
Oh,
office.
Acquisitions Incorporated.
Exactly. I could not remember the name for the life of me, but Acquisitions Incorporated. I'm starting the book later this month after I've done a whole bunch of work for a whole bunch of things. But it's I think it's actually better because you have this realization that things aren't as
Hmm.
easy as we would like them to be and has been presented to us as children. And that is a big idea, I think,
Right.
for a lot of people. So, I applaud Wizards for taking that tack and really kind of looking at how, they can make things more interesting and sort of more true to life a little bit. I do agree, though, that there are ways to do it that kind of really respect the fact that when they created orcs, they were looking at black people and saying, "That's you,"
Mhm.
you know. So
But and that's
yeah.
the thing too with like other games and media and whatnot. Like I look at Hearthstone, the Blizzard game that's the card game that's essentially Magic, but using all the Blizzard properties. And it's based off of WoW stuff. I literally cannot look at the Blizzard World of Warcraft trolls and not think these are the Jamaican people. Why did you make Jamaicans as trolls? Like WTF? And they even talk like them. Like what the fudge?
Yeah.
Like
So
the straight up black people are like so goddamn
problematic.
hard. Like why?
It's pro so, and I think that that's it's particularly it's particularly confusing when there are strict controls against like racial and sort of like lambasting people about their race
Hmm.
when you have um, clear connections and clear sort of derogatory situations in the game itself. So like if you look at, I think there was a big thing a couple years ago where a certain guild got banned, and there was an inquest. Like a state senator went to Blizzard and said, excuse me, Blizzard and said, this person is way out of control, and banned that group. And so I
Hmm.
actually know the person that this happened to, which is really
Oh.
funny. And he was like, "Yeah, no, I'm a giant asshole." And they, but they perpetrate it, right? Like it's a game that sets good races, so the elves and the humans and the gnomes and all of these other sort of white races against a whole bunch of other people who are considered darker, right? They're orcs and they
Hmm.
are orgs and they are trolls and they are the little gnomes,
Halflings and
halflings and
gnomes.
no. Well, I mean World of Warcraft, right? So like
Oh yeah, yeah.
and
It's
so
gnomes and goblins.
gnomes and goblins, right? So they are set against, like they are in war with. They're continually
Hmm.
in conversation, and there's definitely a first world and a second world, right? So
Yeah.
like it's so I don't know what do you expect if that's baked into the game,
Oh
you're going to
yeah.
get that
You can't
tension,
change it.
right?
Well, you
So
can, but it requires you to rewrite your lore. But that's the thing that people don't get is like, oh, they can't do it because it's in the lore. I'm like, but they wrote the lore
they
so
made that
they
shit up.
can change it. Yeah, it's
Like
all made up. Like
literally.
nothing's set in stone. Like you could totally just rewrite this entire thing.
You
It's
know,
fine.
and I think that's what I find the most entertaining when people try to argue about this particular topic. I'm like, they made it up in the first fucking place. Come on. Give
Someone
me
had
a
to start
goddamn
somewhere.
break. Give me a goddamn break. But that's how like people get really intense about their games. Like I understand, like you played with your friends in a basement, and that you fought goblins and you fought mind flayers, and that's how it was, right? You can, I don't. It's
To
hard.
be fair, not everyone was in a basement. Some people were in
They were in their attic.
school, yeah,
They were
in
in a
their
broom
attic
closet.
or in the school like God, Slaughter, stop.
I am not mocking nerds. I am a nerd. I'm very much like
I
pro.
understand. I
People
understand.
get mad at me, but I am an asshole. So completely, you can
Just straight
completely
up,
call me
just
out.
straight
There's
up.
no problem. I'm not afraid.
But yeah, so there are ways that they can improve on that. One of the things that I saw when I was at a Big Back Con last year,
Okay.
year before, um, I was hoping to actually get into one of the other ones, but the group had closed. But there was a person who made an actual Afrocentric steampunk RPG
Oh, interesting.
called Bastion.
Oof.
Loved
I'll
it.
write that down.
Like, yeah, I have the book. It's like the player's guide or whatnot, but they
Okay.
each player got a copy of the book. So it's definitely like very much gives Wakanda vibes and whatnot. But you're talking about a settlement in like Africa, and you play as a person who lives there who has like mystical abilities or just kung fu martial arts or whatever have you. And it's just an Afrocentric setting. Here's the world and whatnot. Go
Is it
nuts.
is it West African, or is it East African, or is it South, or North
I
African, Central?
I could not tell you off the top of my
It's a
head
lot
right
of different
now, but
kinds
I
of
have the book
African,
and I will reread it.
and they're very, very different. I think that's see
This is
so
this is true, but I think they were trying to incorporate a lot of the different stuff
kind of
within
cultures.
Africa.
I
Yeah,
wish they
yeah.
wouldn't do that because there's well, that may be another topic for another time.
Yes.
Speaking of time, we are 10
I know,
minutes.
10 minutes.
But yeah, let's finish up this and then I want to ask
Yeah.
what folks are reading, what you're watching, what you're playing.
Okay. But so the book does talk into detail about the world setting, which I thought was fantastic. The one of the things that was weird is that there's only one player race that is human-ish,
Mm-hmm.
that they represent black, they look black, the culture is black, are African really. All that's there. All the other races that you can play as are like a golem-ish type thing or some elemental thing or whatever have you. So
Orishas,
uh, yeah, they're all like away from a
human.
humanoid thing. I'm like, all right,
Yeah,
fine.
but that's
So the only thing that was weird to me was that the GM that got in, and it was a black RPG about black characters doing black things in Africa, and I was like, okay, great, I'm sold. Get me in. And I come in, and this white lady is running this game, and I'm like,
it's
and
it's not cringe.
it,
Go ahead.
it's not cringe. I started off, I was like, all right, I'm open to this.
Okay.
Let's see where this goes. It took all of 15 minutes to get to a Karen joke.
Dang
And
it.
I was like, okay, yeah, I was like, yeah, no, we went and went, and I'm like, oh, great.
She was
And I was again the only black person in the group. I think there was a Latina, an Asian.
person.
The lady who was running was white.
What kind of were they? Never mind. Go ahead.
Hmm?
I
No,
was
no, no. What
gonna-
was the question?
What kind of Asian? There's lots of different kinds of Asian people.
I don't. I think
Don't
she was.
remember.
I think she was either Korean or Chinese. I can't tell you. I know
Those
she
are very
wasn't
different
Japanese. I
people.
know that.
So funny. All right, Desmond. Well, I'm
But
gonna
yeah,
stop asking
so
you about
that's
it.
so that was the thing, and I love the book. I love the book, so I
Mhm.
will
You bought the
support
book.
the book and the setting and whatever have you. But like that experience was just a little interesting.
That
But
sounds
yes,
par for the course. I think.
it is. It is, and it was. But there are a bunch of RPGs out there that also don't do the morality system
Mm.
that D&D does. And that's another killer to diversity, is because sometimes some races get pigeonholed into the whole, like, you are lawful evil. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But, take a look at other ones out there.
Which
I,
other
I
suggestions do
highly
you have?
suggest looking at a lot of indie stuff, which incorporates a lot of diversity, a lot of, for POCs, for women, for LGBTQA+.
Throw
All
out
that
some
is out there.
names. Tell
Huh?
me. Tell me what
Names.
games. Yes.
Mask is a good one.
Okay.
The a lot of things that are based off like the World of Darkness or Powered by the Apocalypse.
Sweet. Love the
Fate
system.
is super generic. And you can use that for pretty much any system in the known universe. You just have to come up with the setting. Fate's the system, sorry. And I'm going to cheat and look behind me because I have a whole
So
bunch
many
over
books.
here. Yes, I have a bunch of books. Leave me
Bring them
alone.
out. Just pull them out and then show it to us, and that way we can pridefully say that's what it is. But yeah.
Oh, actually, I can't get to it right now. I will pull them up next session because
Okay.
this is much easier for me to get out of my chair to go do it.
Sure.
But I
no
will do
worries.
that for you. Next week, I will bring books actually show up and recommend to you all.
Sure. I think for my recommendations, it's easy for me. I'm always all about cats. This says Monarchy of Mao, Monarchies of Mao, which I read, and it's amazing. We're showing it the other way, but it's real good, and it's about cats and not about people. Awesome. There's also
Nice.
I like the Firefly RPG and the Expanse RPG. Those are both space RPGs, and I'm much more of a fan of those than I am of some of the other stuff that's out there that's more fantasy, especially since a lot of fantasy is sort of based in European, very couched in European experience, and there's plenty of stuff out there that look at different kinds of people in interesting ways. Not super much of a fan of L5R, even though I know other people love it. But I feel like it's a little bit racially insensitive in some ways, but we can go into that another time.
Uh,
Anything else?
this is Bastion.
Okay,
was telling you about.
sweet. That looks really amazing.
Yeah.
I'm definitely excited.
Yeah,
I'm
it
gonna
is.
pick that up. Sounds really
So
cool.
definitely take a look at this if you get the chance. Is Afrocentric sword and sorcery.
Sweet,
That's what this is about.
sweet, sweet. Do you know who
So
the
that's
author
one
is?
thing. Hmm?
Who's the author? You want to say?
Uh, where's the person? That's a good question.
While Desmond finds the
While
author
I pull up
page, which
the
should be the
author,
second page in
you
the
would
book.
hope so. Matthew Botti. Oh God, I can't pronounce
Wow,
words.
wow. I put him on the spot and it just went poorly. No worries. We're gonna
Yeah,
type
I
it
can't
in.
pronounce that name. I'm not even gonna butcher it.
We'll type it in the
Yeah.
notes. There will be a
Yes.
list of things that we recommend. So
Um, I also
we
recommend Shadowrun just
Shadowrun,
because
real fun.
Shadowrun doesn't have bacon like you can have diversity in that because all the other things that you play as in that game are essentially metahuman types. So it's really a human who has dwarf attributes or a human who has troll attributes.
Mhm.
Um, so they don't tie anything to like a specific um, race that we're used to, like Japanese or black or whatever
Yeah,
have you. Like
it's not
that,
really
those still
racially
exist in the
motivated.
world. You just are deviating from that because something got reactivated and essentially everyone started developing traits that are more like the fantasy races. So
Cool.
that's how Shadowrun kind of works in a way. But I love it. Um, I just love Cyberpunk for some reason. I don't know why like Shadowrun was like one of my jams, but like it ended up being the system that I knew a lot of and I always played it. So that was like the one I DM'd.
Okay.
But and then now it's like D&D 5th edition and I love it like the play even though it has its faults.
Cool.
So
All right, 4 minutes, 2 minutes each. What are you playing? What are you reading? And what are you playing, reading? What is the other one I said?
playing, reading, and I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Okay.
Playing,
Recommendations.
yeah, playing Dragon Ball Fighters on the PlayStation 4,
Sweet.
yeah, PS4, um, and Raft and Final Fantasy 14 Online for PC. As for reading, I really need to do more of that, but I will throw into the Have Ready Player One because I'm halfway through the book.
Sweet.
And then I will try to pick up something new if anyone has recommendations that is not Game of Thrones.
And I think the other thing was, what were you watching?
Oh, watching is going to be Lovecraft Country. I'm going to start watching it.
Yay! Very excited. Very excited. Okay. So for me, what am I playing right now? So I am playing No Man's Sky like a crazy person. I love that game. Like literally, I went to the Space Center once when I was working like down there, and I went and I have we both have our NASA shirts on. I cried hot tears just being in the space where they were talking about look people in space. It is like, if there was a job for me, it would be space captain because I wouldn't care who died and I would definitely get everybody out alive. Like straight up.
No.
I will send people off on their fucking away missions, let them die, not feel a damn thing, but definitely get everybody else home. So, No Man's Sky.
Wow.
I'm absolutely in love with this show called Fortitude that I found on
Mm,
Amazon. It's
okay.
real fun. It's about these folks in the Arctic Circle, and somebody's eating people. And I'm just like, I don't know what's going on right now, but there is some crazy cannibalism happening. Interesting.
Okay.
Also watching Lovecraft Country. It is intense. There are some real notes happening about there's some it's good. Just watch it.
I'm being trying to be mentally prepared for everything I'm going to
Oof.
see when I start watching
Oof.
this.
Oof. There's definitely an episode there I was just like, yes. Yes. Also, don't sleep with wizards. Ever. Don't do it. Just
Bad times will happen.
don't. Magic is not, do not put it in. Or allow other people to put it in you if you are a wizard.
Oh
Or if
man.
they are wizards. Don't do it. Also watching, I think that's it. And then
What are you reading? What are you
reading.
watching? What
Yes.
are you playing?
So right now, so reading, I am really enjoying Drizzt, Legend of Drizzt, as I mentioned. And I recently got done with Sylvia Moreno's Gothic, Mexican Gothic, which was really, really, really
Oh,
good. Like stayed with the tropes. She was very, very, very lush language. Really amazing. Highly recommend. Just to learn a little bit about Mexican history and how mushrooms can ruin your life. So here we are, 10 seconds to the end. Thank you for
10
joining
seconds to the end.
us
Thank you
at
so much.
BOS LAX Direct, and we'll see you next Sunday.
See you around. Oh, this is copying salutes.
And
And
we're
have
off.
we officially stopped streaming?
Yes, we're stop streaming.